All right, so for today's lesson, we are going to be touching base on perimeter. So how many of you guys are kind of familiar with what perimeter is, heard of the term, anything like that, by a show of hands? Kind of familiar? Okay, well, if you don't know, we'll go, hopefully by the end of this lesson, you will be able to know exactly what perimeter is. So before we start, we're going to go over some basic terms that are kind of associated with the term perimeter and different terms that we'll need to know in order for us all to be able to succeed in this lesson. So before we get started, the first term that we're going to go over is parallel. So can anyone give me a definition of what parallel means, what it means to be parallel? Brittany?
Is it when like two lines go in the same direction?
Yes. So two lines are going in the same direction. So if you have something that's parallel, kind of elaborating on what Brittany just said, parallel lines are lines that are going in the same direction, but they never meet. So that's also a little interesting fact. So even if they're going the same way, you'll know that they always have equal distance from each other and that they never cross paths. So we have parallel. So now kind of parallel, after parallel, we could touch base on perpendicular. It kind of goes hand in hand with parallel. So does anyone have an idea what perpendicular? Cameron?
Is it two lines that form a 90-degree angle?
Yes. So this is the example of parallel lines. As you can see, they're supposed to have equal distance in between them. And perpendicular, don't mind my spelling, this is why I teach math. Yes. I hope that's spelled correctly. All right. So as Cameron said, there are lines that cross path to form a 90-degree angle. And as you can see here, we always know that when you see that square, that means that a 90-degree angle has been formed. So that's what perpendicular lines are. What about a quadrilateral? Have any of you heard of the term quadrilateral? Heard? All right, next.
It's a shape with four sides.
Shape with four sides. As you all know, quad means four. So if you aren't familiar with certain terms, you can always break them down by their prefixes and suffixes to determine what the word means. So a quadrilateral is any shape that has four sides. So it's a polygon that is a closed figure with four sides. So what is an example of a quadrilateral?
A rectangle.
A rectangle. Do you don't have any other examples?
A square.
A square. Any other ones?
A parallelogram.
A parallelogram. All right. Those are all examples of a quadrilateral. So going off that term, we're going to go on kind of the three most common shapes when we're doing perimeter, which is a square, rectangle, and triangle. So what would you, if you had to define a triangle, how would you define a triangle? Not getting technical, just the basic definition of triangle. Either one.
Okay.
A shape with three sides.
A shape with three sides. So with that, we just want to make sure we elaborate that it's a shape with three sides, but it's a closed shape. And all lines form to meet a vertex, which is a closed point. What about a square?
Four equal sides.
Four equal sides. So one thing that's interesting about a square is that a square has four equal sides, which can be noted. We know when we see the little tick marks on the square, that means that all the lines are congruent and that they all have equal side, and they also have equal angles, that all their angles equal 90 degrees. And the last one we're going to touch base on is a rectangle. What's interesting about a rectangle?
It has four sides also, but two sides are equal to each other and the other two are equal to each other.
Yes. So like Brittany said, it's very similar to a square. The one difference is that they have two sets of parallel lines, and the opposite sides are equal to each other. So now we have those basic terms down pat. Now we can go on to perimeter. So I know Shannon wasn't really familiar with perimeter, but for the rest of you guys, does anyone have a definition of what perimeter means? What it stands for, what we're looking for when we say we're looking for perimeter?
The measurement around the shape.
Measurement around the shape. That is a very generic answer, and that is definitely what we like. That's all perimeter is. It's the measurement around. So if we're kind of comparing perimeter to area, which we'll touch base on later on, let's say we're taking these are supposed to be equal squares. Let's say for this one we're trying to find the perimeter. The perimeter, all we're finding is the distance around. So that notes the distance around. And for that, if we're trying to find the area, we're finding the distance inside. So that's the big difference between area and perimeter, is that perimeter is the measurement around the figure. So now that we know what perimeter is, perimeter is pretty easy to, once you know that your steps, it'll never be a problem when it's time to figure out a problem. So there's 3 easy steps to finding perimeter. Alright, so the first step in finding the perimeter is just pretty much just listing all your sides. So let's say we get a question that the object that we're working with is a rectangle, and they give us the sides of 12 inches, 8 inches, 8 inches, and 12 inches. So we know that our sides for this problem is just going to be 12, 8, 8, and 12. So pretty much that's all we're doing for step 1, just writing it out, listing it so that we all can see exactly what numbers we'll have to be working with for this problem. So step 1, listing the sides. What do we think step 2 is going to be? Want to take a wild guess?
Add them together.
Add them together? Alright. So step number 2, as Alex said, would just be add the sides. Alright, so how do we add these sides? How do we add these sides? Okay, so go ahead and add them for me. When you get your answer, you can put it on the board. Does everyone agree? Does anyone agree with Cameron's answer? No? Who got something different? Oh, the whole class? It's okay. So we're just going to go through it and try to figure out where Cameron went wrong. Alright, so we're going to add the sides up. So if it makes it easier to break it down into 2 different problems, by all means, go for it. So we're going to start off. We're going to take the first 2, which is 12 and 8. And so what's 12 plus 8? You can just yell it out. 20. All right. So we have 20. We have here another 8 plus 12. So just to check our work, make sure we didn't do anything incorrect the first time. We're going to do 8 plus 12. And what are we going to get?
20.
20. All right. Now we're going to add those 20s together. And what are we going to get?
40.
All right. So we will get our answer of 40. So, are we done with this problem? Are we completely finished?
No.
What are we missing?
Units.
Units. Perfect. So, our last step is going to be to label your units. Do y'all remember what the units were for this problem? Inches. I said inches earlier. I didn't write it up here, but I did mention it was inches earlier. So all we're going to do is we have our answer of 40. And what are our units, Talia?
Inches.
Inches. So now 40 inches. Are we completely done with this problem?
Yes.
Question.
What happens if the units aren't given?
If the units aren't given, then you just do units as your answer. If they don't give you any units, you just automatically just put units, because all answers need to have units because every question or answer will be different if you didn't give them units.
So if we just put the number, then it would be wrong.
If you just put the number, it would it would be wrong.
Well, we have different units.
But we have different units in one problem. Some problems you may have different units and you may have to convert them, but in the end you always have to have one consistent unit. So whatever, normally in the problem they'll tell you what unit the answer needs to be in. So if you get miles and maybe feet, you'll maybe have to convert the miles to feet and then find your final answer in feet. So always you only deal with one consistent conversion unit. Any other questions? Everyone feels comfortable with perimeter?